Hello, my name is James Salt and welcome to my third assignment in anatomy as part of my BTEC Extended Diploma in Sport and Exercise Science Level 3. This assignment is going to be on the cardiovascular system. I will now take you through a purpose game which is all about the heart. Before starting the purpose game, our cardiovascular system is made of three parts: the heart, blood vessels and blood. The heart is roughly as big as our fist when closed together. It is located just left of the centre of our chest. There are three levels to the heart wall. The pericardium, this is the outer layer. This layer reduces friction and maintains the shape of the heart. The myocardium, this is the middle layer. This is the largest layer and is used in the electrical impulses of our heartbeats. And finally the endocardium, this is the inner layer. This layer prevents friction from occurring between the flowing blood and the muscle of the heart. So now on to the purpose game. I'll go through this purpose game and talk to you about it as I'm going through it. So firstly, the aortic valve is just here. This prevents the backflow of blood into the left ventricle. The pulmonary artery, which is just here. This delivers the deoxygenated blood to the lungs, from the lungs to the heart. The tricuspid valve is just here. This prevents backflow of blood into the right atrium. The aorta, which is up here, this delivers oxygenated blood to the body. The right atrium, which is here, this collects deoxygenated blood from the body and contracts to push blood through the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle. The superior vena cava is at the top left. This delivers deoxygenated blood back to the heart from the upper body. The left atrium is just here. This collects oxygenated blood from the lungs and contracts to push blood through the bicuspid valve to the left ventricle. The inferior vena cava, this delivers deoxygenated blood back to the heart from the lower body. The chordae tendineae is here. These are cord-like tendons that attach to the tricuspid and bicuspid valves. They prevent the valves from turning inside out. The septum is here in the middle. The septum acts as a barrier between the two sides of the heart. It stops the right side of the heart, which contains deoxygenated blood, mixing with the left side of the heart that contains oxygenated blood. The bicuspid valve is on the opposite to the tricuspid valve, and this prevents the backflow of blood into the left atrium. The left ventricle, which is just here, this collects oxygenated blood from the left atrium and contracts to push blood through the aortic valve up the aorta. The pulmonary vein, which is here, this delivers oxygenated blood back into our body. The pulmonary valve is here. This prevents backflow of blood into the right ventricle. And finally, the right ventricle is here. This collects deoxygenated blood from the right atrium and contracts to push blood through the pulmonary valve up the pulmonary artery. So, back to the PowerPoint. Onto blood vessels. There are 5 blood vessels within the body. These are artery, arteriole, capillary, venual and vein. So arteries pump oxygenated blood to the body. They have narrow lumens, and they are also fairly strong as they pump blood at high pressure. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, and only one artery carries deoxygenated blood. This artery is the pulmonary artery, and this is the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood. Onto the arteriole. This blood vessel connects arteries to capillaries. They have more smooth muscles which helps to control blood flow. They also need to slow the blood flow down before it reaches the capillaries. This is to allow for efficient diffusion. Onto capillaries. Capillaries are the thinnest blood vessel that we have. They are made of a single layer of endothelial cells. They bring blood as close as possible to all possible cells. Capillaries help the exchange of oxygen, carbon dioxide, water and salts to happen between the blood and the surrounding body tissues. Large quantities of capillaries cover the muscle, ensuring efficient exchange of gases. The venule. This blood vessel is formed from capillaries. It drains blood from capillaries into our veins. Finally, onto the veins. Veins have the same type of walls as arteries, but they are thinner, less elastic and muscular. The pressure and speed of blood is low within our veins. They have wider lumen than arteries. Veins do have valves that prevent the backflow of blood happening, and this is good. Veins do return blood to the heart, and it is the pulmonary vein that carries the oxygenated blood. Finally, there are 3 layers of blood vessels. You've got the tunica externa, which is also known as the adventitia. This is the outer layer, and it is largely made up of collagen and elastin fibers. It also supports blood vessels by being a shock absorber to them. You've got the tunica media. This is the middle layer. It is mainly a smooth muscle with elastic layers and collagen. It is used for vasoconstriction and vasodilation. You've got the tunica intima. This layer is composed of smooth epithelial cells which are called endothelium. This layer also minimises the friction between the moving blood that is going around us. Onto blood. Blood is a thick liquid that makes up 8% of our body weight. An average male adult contains 5 to 6 litres of blood within them. An average female adult contains 4 to 5 litres of blood within them. There are 5 main components of blood: erythrocytes, leukocytes, hemoglobin, plasma and thrombocytes. Erythrocytes. These are more commonly known as red blood cells within our body. They are concave in shape, which means they are shaped inwards. They take oxygen from our lungs to where it is needed in the body. They also remove carbon dioxide from the body and take it to the lungs for excretion and to get rid of the carbon dioxide. You've got the leukocytes, or the leukocytes. These are more commonly known as white blood cells within our body. There are a lot less of them in our body than red blood cells. They only make up less than 1% of our blood. We only need the white blood cells if bacterial viruses get into our body. As I've said, they defend our bodies against viruses, bacteria and parasites. They help the body stay in good condition and to help the body function well and efficiently. Hemoglobin is a protein which actually gives the red blood cells their red colour. They have a high affinity for oxygen. Also, hemoglobin causes oxygen to bind to red blood cells. The red blood cells' main role is to carry oxygen from the lungs to the working muscles. Red blood cells have millions of hemoglobin so they can transport high levels of oxygen. This is good for exercise so that a lot of oxygen can get to the working muscles and allows us to exercise for longer. Plasma. Plasma is the liquid substance for blood. This carries the solids, for example blood cells, around the body. This is the reason dehydration is so dangerous. We can't get energy or nutrients around the body effectively without high levels of plasma. It is a stick and is straw-coloured. It contains hormones, enzymes, antibodies and glucose. Finally, thrombocytes, more commonly known as platelets. When they are exposed to air, they become sticky. This is vital for clotting, for when a blood vessel is ruptured, they will eventually turn into a scab. There are 3 main functions of blood: oxygen transport, clotting, and fighting infection. Oxygen binds to hemoglobin in the red blood cells through using the circulatory system. Oxygen, as well as nutrients and hormones, can be transported around the body. The circulatory system is made up of all the blood, heart, and blood vessels. That is oxygen transport. Clotting. Platelets play an essential role here and will form a platelet plug at the site of damage. This is due to a substance called factor VIII, which causes platelets to become sticky when exposed to air. This will form a scab and cover the damaged area. Fight infection. This is done via the white blood cells. They contain antibodies which are used to defend against viruses and bacteria. This will prevent infection happening. This is done by attacking them once they enter the bloodstream. The cardiovascular system has three main functions: delivery of oxygen, removal of waste products, and thermoregulation. Delivery of nutrients. Overall, this is the main role of the cardiovascular system. This is done through the heart pumping blood all around the body. This is essential during exercise and sport performance, as there is an increased demand for nutrients and oxygen to get to our working muscles so that we can perform as well as possible. The delivery of nutrients and oxygen will also help our muscles to work for as long as possible over a prolonged period of time. Heat, hormones, and the components of blood are also distributed. Removal of waste products. As well as transporting much needed substances, it also removes undesirable waste products. They are taken away from the muscles and organs of the body for excretion. For example, the need to remove carbon dioxide is increased during exercise so that we reduce the amount of lactic acid within us and try to help our muscles to not be as tight or sore after exercise has taken place. Thermoregulation. This is completed by the two mechanisms that are controlled by the baroreceptors to control blood flow. Baroreceptors are receptors within the blood vessels that can control blood pressure by either increasing it or decreasing it. The two mechanisms are vasoconstriction and vasodilation. Vasoconstriction is when you're too cold, the blood vessels will constrict. This causes blood to be closer to the body core, which will keep you warm. Vasodilation is when you're too hot, the blood vessels will dilate. This causes blood to be closer to the skin, which allows heat to escape from the body. On to the cardiac cycle. There are two pieces of key terminology that needs to be understood about the cardiac cycle. These are systole and diastole. Systole is the stage of the cardiac cycle when either the atria or ventricles are contracting. Diastole is the stage of the cardiac cycle when either the atria or ventricles are relaxing. So, about the cardiac cycle, deoxygenated blood goes from the vena cava into the right atrium. That then contracts, which causes the tricuspid valve to open. Once all the blood has gone through the tricuspid valve, it then closes to stop the blood from coming back through. From the tricuspid valve, it goes into the right ventricle. The right ventricle contracts and the blood goes through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery, and once it has passed through the pulmonary valve, then closes to stop blood getting back into the right ventricle. It goes from the pulmonary artery up to the lungs to swap carbon dioxide for oxygen by breathing out. It then goes down the pulmonary vein down to the left atrium. The left atrium then contracts and sends the blood through the bicuspid valve, which goes through to the left ventricle. The bicuspid valve then closes and the left ventricle then starts to contract, which sends the blood through the aortic valve. And when the blood has gone through, the valve relaxes and closes to prevent backflow of blood happening. The blood then comes out of the aorta and then into the body. This gives the body oxygen and blood for the working muscles. There are two types of circulation: pulmonary and systemic. Pulmonary is between the heart and lungs, and systemic is between the heart and body.